talking about the power of when you ask somebody for their forgiveness, that is the power of saying I'm sorry, the power of apology. And you've been working with some ideas about apology that might be just came off the top of my head.
Oh, many, many years ago, maybe 15 years ago.
We've been working on this for years.
I heard about a phone line that was set up for anyone to call and just to speak to the phone service, to the computer, not to any one person, and say what they were sorry for. It didn't matter what they were sorry for, but just to say this to this computer phone system. And for some people to say that what they were sorry for, what they apologized for, some to ask for forgiveness, but mostly just I apologize for whatever. And ever since I heard that, maybe 15 years ago, I found it really interesting. And I found that you don't really need somebody to say, I forgive you, child, or God forgives you, or the universe, or Buddha, or whoever. But just to be able to kind of unload, just to let go of something that you've been carrying, that you didn't want to talk to a friend or a relative about. Sometimes it's something that maybe we whispered to our animal friends because we knew that they didn't judge us. And so we thought that part of our setting up this new website is we would have an apology page where anyone could write in anything that they wanted to say that they were sorry for. I'm committed to read it. I'm not committed to respond to anyone by email or by letter or by phone or any other way, but I will commit to, in my own heart, to support your desire for being forgiven. And as I would ask you or all the other people in the universe to forgive me for any unkindnesses or any ways that I was unloving or unskillful. If there's anything that's crude or lewd, it will be taken off. But otherwise, it's just going to be there for all of us to read and just to reflect on the different things that we're all sorry for. Some things we'll be able to relate to, other things we might think are silly or frivolous, but that's beside the point. It's just a way to let go of some of the guilt or some of our fear or some of our unkindness that we've had toward ourselves. I mean, it seems that no one is as unkind to us as we are to ourselves. So this is just another experiment in truth, and we'll see how it goes and see what happens. And it might be interesting, and you can write whatever you want as a reflection, but no emails, no real, I mean, you could use your first name, but don't use your last name, because it's really no one's business other than to maybe help others to see how your pain might help them let go of their pain.
For years, Ondrea and I used to, when we did large workshops, particularly when we did them in nature settings, where there might be a few hundred people in a large meadow or such, Ondrea would sit at one end of the meadow and I would sit at the other, and we would do an American Indian practice called the Eater of Impurities. And the ground rules were very similar to the apology page. You don't have to give us your last name. Of course, we knew who everybody was because we'd been with them for maybe 5 days or a week during a long retreat process. But they just come up and they say, my name is Stephen. And the person sitting down, Ondrea or I, would say, give it to me. That's all the person would say that's receiving. The Eater of Impurities would just say, give it to me. And the person would sit down, and we both had these experiences, and they would talk, they would say something that they couldn't say to anyone else perhaps. Or maybe they could, but they weren't getting the response. They weren't getting what they needed in this expulsion of toxins that they've been carrying around, toxins in the form of shame, of self-hatred, of anger. I mean, we've had people say to us, I killed people, I murdered people. When I was in Vietnam, I killed people that I shouldn't have killed. And I've been carrying that for 10, 15, 20 years. And who else could I say it to but the eater of impurities? And because nothing would come out of the eater of impurity, no body language, no twitch, no gritted jaw, no squinted eye. I mean, we heard things that were quite horrific, things that the society, the culture, would highly disagree with, highly disapprove of, and some things that people thought would be disapproved of. Much of what we heard was people's expression of hidden sexual feelings. Unfortunately, some of it was people saying, I'm a homosexual, and nobody knows it. And it would just make our heart break that these people had this thing so deep in them, as deep as love, and they couldn't find acceptance, couldn't find a natural expression in the world they lived in. Or maybe they said, we've had this happen. A couple came up to us, and the fellow happened to be sitting in the circle that I was with, and the woman happened to be sitting in the circle that Ondrea was with. And the fellow said to me, I've been married for 20 years, and we have a really good marriage. And my wife doesn't know this, but I'm cheating on her. I have a lover. Ondrea, on her side, heard the wife come and say, I've been married for 20 years. We've had a really good relationship. My husband doesn't know this, but I'm cheating on him. And we're not there in that particular, if we were in a different session, if we were in a more, we're not acting as counselors. In a counselor situation, we might say, if this is separating you from someone you love, even communication, it's funny, even communicating things that are difficult can make you closer. And I would suggest to them, think about that. Talk about it fantasize about speaking to that person in your heart. And just see what comes out. See what you notice the next time you touch them. If when you touch them, you feel them a little more, because at least at some level you're being honest. And some people we would have said, its relationship sounds like it's not giving you or your partner what they need. But as the eater of impurities, just like as in the apology page, it's just a matter of receiving. That just somebody can hear you, can listen to you from their heart instead of from their judging mind. I mean, the judging mind, when Jesus says, judge not lest you be judged, that's because the judging mind literally doesn't know the difference between you and the person you're judging. The judging mind just judges. And that it causes such pain in the world. If you judge another, you will judge yourself. If you inculcate that kind of projection on people, you'll do the same to yourself. So in the eater of impurities, we would often hear people tell, a woman comes up, we've told this story before. A woman comes up, she's 80 years old. She sits down. I say, give it to me. She said, I stole the cookie. I said, well, what's that about? She said, when I was 7 years old, my sister and my mother was baking cookies, and there was a cookie tray of warm cookies. And I took a cookie off the cookie tray. And when my mother said, who did that? I blamed my sister. And my sister and I, for 70 years, have had difficulty, an essential, rooted difficulty in our relationship. And my sister's about to die. And I don't know how to unravel 70 years of silence. And that's part of what the apology page does. That's what the eater of impurities does. She unravels silence. She unravels distance. The distance between the heart and the mind is the greatest distance in the universe. Somehow We have to figure out some way of healing ourselves, of letting our mind full of particular desires, full of ways of wanting things to be, full of dissatisfaction. Our mind is so full of dissatisfaction. How we can go to a place that is naturally satisfactory, and that is the open-heartedness that says, it's okay, baby. It's okay. We all are carrying... The Dalai Lama speaks, and we've spoken about this a lot because he's such a model to us, and we've been lucky to have some direct contact with him over the years. He says, I say things that I can't pull back. I can't retrieve. Once they're out of my mouth, once they're through my lips, they're out in this world. And what do? How can I get those things back? And instead of, when we say, how can I get these things back, then the distance begins. Then we become more distant. I'm trying to figure things out. You become an object into my mind. Instead of taking that person into your heart and taking their hands in your hand and saying, oh, that was a blooper on my part. Alan Watts said that sin, that a word that's not very functional, is really missing the mark. When we miss the mark with another human being, when we miss the mark with ourselves, when we miss the mark in not allowing ourselves into our own heart, we really skip a beat that's hard to get back. Apology page, eater of impurities, telling your beloved the secret. Now, many people, when you say that to them, they say, well, I'm with my beloved now, but what happens when 10 years from now we're not together? I see people breaking secrets, breaking betrothed secrets in the world because of anger. Nothing makes us more angry. No one we're more angry at than someone we once loved. It's too bad. So we really have to do this work so that we're giving that to ourselves, so that we've taken ourselves into our own heart in such a manner that it isn't, we don't have to give it to someone else, and we can give it to someone else. You can say, I have a friend, therapists hear this all the time, I have a friend who's having wet dreams all the time. What should I tell him? We are so hidden. We keep so much of ourselves behind a wall. We have so little mercy. I mean, if when we talk about it, you can't help but laugh at some of the things. Now, I don't mean some of the things that we've heard where people have done things to others that are really irretrievable. And it may take them lifetimes to burn through that motivation that allowed them to do something to another. I think most people who are, not all, but I think most people who do severe damage to others don't realize how much damage they're doing at the time. They are what Thich Nhat Hanh says, their heart cannot yet see. And because their heart cannot yet see, they have no awareness of what's happening, of what they're doing. We meditate just to try to get into our body. We watch our breath just so we can bring our breath into our body. We watch our heart in forgiveness just so that we can start to find the domain of the heart. The more we do that, the less we're going to act in an unconscious, harmful manner. In the same way that we forgive others as a means of freeing ourselves, we free ourselves as a means of freeing the world. The work we do on ourselves is for the benefit of everyone.